Good afternoon and welcome to Tuesday, September 8th's Daily Reflection. Yesterday afternoon I was talking with my middle brother, who's a lay pastor in the New England Synod, authorized to serve at Zion Lutheran Church in Portland, Connecticut, his home congregation. He told me that he had offered his pastor the weekend off and said that he would be willing to take care of the services on that Sunday if she would like Labor Day weekend as a freebie. And of course she said yes. Pete told me that he started looking at those lessons and started to reflect on the gospel lesson from Matthew 18, where Jesus tells us how to resolve conflict issues with a very simplistic approach. To talk to one another who has sinned against you, but to do this in private. This is a one-on-one conversation. Now, Pete said that as he started looking at that, he began to realize that this was a personnel issue text, and he decided to put it aside and use the Roman text instead, love one another. We chatted a little bit about this personnel text issue, and I understood why he didn't want to touch it and wanted to move rather to the Romans text. Earlier this year, I had made a commitment that I was going to use the Roman text for the entire summer as long as it lasted, even though it meant that I would probably have to give up some of my other texts in the Matthew Gospel, which were part of my favorites. And such was the case on Sunday. But now I'm going to use this reflection time to talk about Matthew 18 and Jesus' charge to us on how to resolve conflicts. There's a key in the middle of all of this, and I think it's important that we talk to one another. That's the first step, and it's usually the hardest to do. Going to one another who has, in Jesus' words, sinned against me. Now that, in our culture today, it's so difficult. I feel like we rely more on name-calling and shaming. We all fall victim to this, I fear. But I think that there's an even earlier step in the process of reconciliation. The question is, did someone sin against me? And what was that sinful act? We may have disagreed about something, but is that really a sin against me? See, we're so willing in these days to align ourselves with certain adjectives, conservative or liberal, Republican or Democrat, Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, Lutheran, evangelical. We're willing to call one another names, white supremacist, racist, stupid, socialist. The adjectives and the list seem to go on forever. But is that really sinning against one another? We all come from different experiences. I know, for example, that I come from a privileged background. I lived where we wanted to live. I was never targeted during my life by either police or another culture. I got through college with no debt, and I always seemed to be able to get that summer job that I needed. Also, when I walked into the 2 restaurants I worked at during college and seminary, I was given the job almost immediately. I didn't have to prove that I was worthy. Nobody asked too many deep questions. Now, I know that not everyone I knew in high school or college had the same treatment. I also knew that not everyone in my neighborhood, my current neighborhood, has experienced the same reception in life that I have enjoyed. It seems to me that the sin is not that I can be honest about these privileges that I have enjoyed, but rather the sin against me is that when I am ridiculed for questioning why the reluctance to acknowledge the privilege, to break down the barriers, to make equality reality for all of us. The sin is when I tell someone, because they don't accept my understanding, that they really obviously can't be part of the Christian church. The sin is when my position becomes the only acceptable position. The sin is when someone else tells me that my position is flat out wrong. See, in that moment that Jesus says we should talk face to face. Did you hear that? We are to talk face to face and alone. Go to the one who has sinned against you and talk to him or her, I would add. Just the two of us. No posting on Facebook. No telling all of my friends that someone has wronged me. Not using social media to diminish and mock the other person. I'm to have a personal conversation. That's where the rubber really hits the road. I'm afraid that we have lost the ability to carry on conversations in a personal and private way. I fear that we just look for a way to align as many people as we can to be right alongside of our perspectives, reinforce our numbers, and then slam the other person. Yet that's not how Jesus tells me to handle the situation. Two people had a shouting match before church one morning. One person was arranging pamphlets in the narthex. That's what we call the atrium here at Shepherd of the Hills. And the other, the unofficial organizer, would have absolutely none of it. The organizer reminded everyone in earshot how the length of membership in the congregation that person had enjoyed, and that the other just didn't understand the method. The other silently backed down, not wanting to create more of a scene. But the organizer wasn't finished. More angry words flew out. And then I think the sin came with the words, "You know you'll probably never be in this congregation in another 20 years, so just let us do it the way we've always done it." The person who had been hurt by those sinful words tried to have a conversation after worship, but that long-term organizer would have none of it. The sin multiplied. That individual assumed that they knew exactly what was best and wouldn't entertain any thought of learning how their actions and words had hurt. That's the sin part. Never willing to go all the way with the method that Jesus described, because the goal was not removal, but rather was reconciliation. The other newbie didn't pursue anything more. Yet you could see, they say, that the relationship between the two was always a little frosty and distant for the entire time the two of them remained part of that community of faith. Resolve the issues. That's what Jesus asks us to do. Talk to one another. Listen to one another. Go and talk to the one who has sinned against you. Not because they have a different opinion, but because they have said sinful, hurtful words. And if that person listens, you have regained that one. If only we could really talk and listen to one another in these heated times. Imagine how good a model that would be for behavior and for life. I look forward to seeing you on Sunday. And in the meantime, wash those hands, please, 20 seconds at a time, a couple of times a day. Use hand lotion to keep them nice and soft. Stay home if you're not feeling well, especially coughing or having any respiratory issues. Love one another. Outside of your family, practice that physical distance 6 feet apart. Wear your masks, please. Let's stop this spread. Let's love one another that way. And of course, as Sergeant Esterhaus dismissed me this morning, in my mind at least, be careful out there.